Hey everyone! Thank you for taking the time to join in with Uncommon Women Podcast, a dope podcast to bring light to reality from real life people sharing real life stories with a host of women having real life talk, the good and the bad, with no judgment. Uncommon Women's Loyalty is here to support those that need a safe space to speak their truth and rawness to the world. Tune in, relax, take notes, and let's vibe. Here are your hosts, Uncommon Women.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And we are Uncommon Women. I am Jenny Lee.
And I'm Shanera.
And we have an amazing guest speaker, and her name is Monika Martin. She is an alignment coach and soul therapist from overcoming trauma from her childhood to being free, healthy, and happier. She now helps others and trying to find their purpose and to overcome their dark night of the soul so they can live a purposeful, driven life. Hey, Monika, how you doing?
Hello, ladies. I am good. How are you?
I'm great.
I'm doing good. I can't complain.
It's nice to be here with you.
Yes, thank you so much for coming on our platform today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
It is great, and I'm excited to hear your story and what you're doing for others now. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you like to do?
So, like you said, I'm an alignment coach and soul therapist. I help people overcome a dark night of the soul, basically by helping them find themselves and their happiness and also manage stress.
Okay.
Because I think, like most people, when they go through this phase in their lives where they literally awaken to themselves, it creates a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety as well. So I help them overcome that so they can then, activate their purpose and, create a life that they enjoy and love.
That sounds really great. So let's go back to your childhood and how and what made you come into and what you're doing for others now. Can you give us a little bit of your childhood and let us know how that came about into your life?
Of course. So I'm going to try to keep it short because that's quite a long story.
Yes.
So I was born and raised in France. And I grew up in a very toxic and abusive environment. Basically, my parents had a very chaotic relationship, which was toxic and abusive. And they had, and their parents also had, this kind of drama going on in their lives and within their relationships. So I think my parents didn't have a lot of awareness and they were not really conscious of the way they were behaving because for them it was normal.
It was normal.
Yeah. But my sisters and I, we grew up in a very there was domestic violence. There was physical, verbal, emotional, psychological abuse. And early on, I started to have a lot of anxiety. It was a child that was quite anxious, but I would always, I would always hide it in front of other people.
Okay.
I didn't know what it was like to feel safe because at home it was always very chaotic. So, sometimes, for, like maybe for a few hours it could be calm. And then all of a sudden it would be, you would have, my parents fighting and screaming and being verbally and physically abusive towards each other. So you were basically walking on eggshells. And so early on, I started to develop anxiety and also physical symptoms, such as I always had tummy aches. I always had tummy aches.
Okay.
And when I became a teenager, I started to have very bad panic attacks that would wake me up in the middle of the night. I was sleeping and I would be woken up because my body was having a panic attack. So you just wake up, and you're still kind of confused and your throat is so tight. You feel like you cannot breathe and your heart is racing and, you feel like you're going to die, literally.
Wow.
So, that was really something. And I would go to doctors because at the time I think I was about 16, 17 years old when I started to have panic attacks. So I was still a minor.
Okay.
And
Mm.
I went to my family doctor and they would just say, it was stress. But, at the time, doctors would just tell me it's stress and no one would actually want to look further.
Because of your
Um,
age, probably. Do you think it was because of your age, being 16? Well, being a teenager, you're just stressed out.
I think because unfortunately, even now, a lot of doctors are not trauma informed
Mm,
and they
Mm.
are not able to actually recognize a child or an adult who is suffering from, PTSD or complex PTSD or even abuse, because first of all, we hide it, but the symptoms speak for themselves,
Yeah.
right? I used to be a kid I would talk really, really fast. Which showed at the time that I already had a dysregulated nervous system because I was chronically stressed. So I used to go to my family doctor, and in my early 20s, I started to go to different kind of healers because I was
Mm.
like, okay, so it seems like the regular doctors cannot help me. I really don't know what to do. I really don't know. And so I tried, I knew I was working at the time, this company, and one of the bosses, he knew this healer and he was like, okay, like this is his address and go there. And so I started to go to healers. And the thing is that they were never able to heal me. I would go for one session, another
Wow.
session, and always another session. So I actually spent a lot of time and a lot of money trying to heal all my different kind of symptoms. And it was only until I reached burnout in July 2021 that I
Okay.
was actually able to really heal myself.
Wow.
And the thing that really helped me heal was to really acknowledge my childhood trauma. Because I remember
Mm.
when I left my parents' home, I consciously told myself that this chapter of my life was over and I didn't want to hear about it anymore. And
Yeah.
I didn't want to be defined by what had happened to me. I didn't want to be I guess I just didn't want people to look at me in a certain way. So I
Yeah.
never really talked about it.
Yeah.
And also, I was like, this thing that happened to me, like, that's not going to impact me.
Yeah.
But that's the worst thing that I did to myself because it really made my healing journey way longer.
Mm.
So I reached burnout in 2021. And I actually reached burnout because in March 2020, during the first lockdown here in Europe, I started to have. So I used to have, tons of different kind of symptoms
Yeah.
um, for many, many years. But
Can you
during the
can you kind of iterate a little bit of those symptoms for the audience?
yes,
Because
for sure,
sometimes they can just be like, oh, like you said, you had a tummy ache, that it could just be a
yeah,
headache. And you, like you
S-
said, they could be very chronic, but they're not sure what they are.
yeah.
Can you kind of iterate and just give us some examples?
So I had the typical symptoms of anxiety, which was, I had muscle pain.
Okay.
I have digestive issues. I don't know if I had too much or too little acid in the stomach, but that
Okay.
was, I mean, I had for about 12 years or
Wow.
more. I had like issues with my stomach.
Wow. That can probably be so bothersome, like every
Yeah,
single
and
day.
I had like I guess you call that heartburns or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had that almost all the time. And I took, like I think it was, like omeprazole or something like that, a prescription drug
Okay.
to help kind of like block the acid, because the problem with doctors is that they think there is too much, but sometimes there's too little and the
Yeah.
effects are the same. But so I was taking that and it wasn't working. So I had very bad stomach issues for over a decade. I also had
Wow.
insomnia. Ever since I was a kid, I had a hard time sleeping.
Wow.
And insomnia was pretty bad. Sometimes I could, I would just fall asleep. Didn't have a problem falling asleep. It was more about waking up in the middle of the night and not being able to fall back asleep. So I could wake up in the middle of the night and, just not sleep, be awake for like 3 or 4 hours and then falling back asleep. But then, my alarm would ring and I would have to get up and go to work.
Yeah.
So I had really bad insomnia. I also had this thing like I was not able to rest.
Okay.
Uh, if I wanted to relax, for example, I could always feel some sort of like activation within me. Also, I had phobias. Like I said, I had panic attacks. Then they would just happen in the middle of the night. I didn't have panic attacks. Like for example, if I had to go out somewhere, because
Yeah.
a lot of people have panic attacks when they have to go out.
Yeah.
Actually, me, when I was around people, that kind of made me feel safer. And there was a
Okay.
time about 3 to 4 years ago, I was going through a phase where I had a very bad phobia, and I would have like 5 panic attacks during the day. That was
Oh,
actually
wow.
the first period of my life where I actually had panic attacks in during the day. And so I remember when I would be at work, I would have a panic attack, and I thought I was going to die. But at the same time, the fact that there were people around me, I was like, okay, I have to keep myself in check because I'm not going to literally like have a meltdown in front of
Yeah.
these people. And so that's really weird because that's when I realized that there are different parts in the brain that work in a different way. Because I had this part of my
Interesting.
brain that was, like really anxious, like crazily anxious and going through a panic attack. But there was also another part of my brain that I was able to keep um, myself sane, at least looking from the outside. So basically, people would look at me, I guess, and they would see me actually not being super well, but
Yeah.
normal. But inside I was literally feeling like I was dying, like. And so that's really interesting how the brain works. So I had that, and I had chronic pain. I had pain, like I had different kind of pain, and people didn't know. Like anxiety will show up in so many different ways, and like all anxiety is due to a dysregulated nervous system. So, and especially when you have anxiety and and your life is going well and you're like, I have no clue, why I'm feeling anxious.
Right.
It's probably because there's still something stored in your nervous system from, you know something that happened to you like in your childhood or when you were a teenager. There's still something that hasn't been healed and processed.
Wow. And at one point, when you were trying to get help from the doctors, and
Yeah.
did you ever feel frustrated, with them because they were
I
telling
was
you something was really,
so effing
they weren't
frustrated.
telling you anything, and you're trying to figure
And
out what's wrong with you.
the
Right.
problem is that I think like general doctors, family doctors, and even psychiatrists are not really trauma informed. They don't know how to heal the trauma. They help you cope with it by giving you pills and drugs, but they
Mm-hmm.
don't know how to help you heal.
Yeah.
And yes, I was extremely frustrated. That's why at some point I went and to see like different kind of healers. I also went to I also did alternative therapies like acupuncture
Right.
and things like that. But yeah, I mean, ever since you're a child, you're told that doctors are here to help you and
Yeah.
to help you with your health. And I feel that I got no help
No
at
help.
all.
Mm-hmm.
I got no help at all because I think that they were, it wasn't like a, life or death kind of situation.
Yeah.
So as long as you're alive, it doesn't matter if you're not thriving. It doesn't matter if you are not feeling healthy. If the lab doesn't show anything,
Yeah.
then
Mm-mm.
whatever. And it was my personal experience in France and in Switzerland as well, because now, well, I've been living in Switzerland for about 9 years now. But I know that other people around the world have the very same experience, not
Mm.
being heard, not being seen.
Right.
Uh, doctors not wanting to go to the root cause issue of their problems. It's really hard. And honestly, it's really, really hard. And I think that you really have to be a fighter and
Mm-hmm.
an advocate for yourself
Yeah.
and your health to really find true healing.
Did anyone think that you were just maybe going crazy? Because you would think that to say they're like telling you
Because
there's
they're
nothing
going by
wrong
the
with you.
testing, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Going
Yeah.
by, well, everything else looks normal. You
Yeah.
Yeah. And that makes actually think about something. I think it was in 2020, in 2012, I had symptoms that were like my sugar level was dropping
Okay.
all of a
Mm.
sudden. And I remember once, like there was no one, like my boyfriend was away and I was alone, and I was started to feel really unwell and very dizzy, and so I called an ambulance actually,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm.
they took me to the hospital, and and there's a doctor, a female doctor that that I got to see.
Right.
And she checked my vitals and everything. And I remember my boyfriend came pick me up. And when I left, I remember her saying, "Oh well, she should just, I'm sure she just, she starves herself since she doesn't eat."
What?
What?
And she thought that I had this I
Like
was
an
feeling
eating
unwell
disorder or something?
because I had
Wow.
an eating disorder, which
Okay.
I didn't have actually. It was a period of my life where I had to eat almost all the time because I would have those feelings like my blood level was dropping and I would feel
Right.
very dizzy and
Wow.
unwell, but it wasn't my blood level dropping. It wasn't that. But they didn't look any further. And, she just said something, oh, well, she probably has an eating disorder and she doesn't want to eat or something. When
Yeah.
she never asked me about my
Wow. So
eating
she just
habits
so
or
basically she just
anything.
assumed.
She just
Yeah,
assumed.
she
She
just
just
assumed.
assumed.
Like she just checked my vitals, and I was telling her, that I was feeling unwell, and I didn't know where it was coming from, and she never asked if I was eating or like what were my
Normal
eating habits,
protocol. Right.
Wow.
and nothing. And and then she let me go, and I heard her say that, and I was like, "What the f?" Like,
Oh my
and
Right.
goodness. That's terrible. That's a
so
terrible thing
and
to just assume that
yes,
about someone
so many
without
doctors
even
assume,
doing anything. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh my
And
because
not
goodness.
your
doing
vitals.
protocol, because that's typically what it would lead to. How are you eating? What your
Mm-hmm.
daily eating habits
No,
are.
nothing. She didn't ask me about anything related to food at all.
Wow.
And I think
Mm-mm.
that a lot of doctors actually assume things. Just because your vitals are good doesn't mean that you are healthy or well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. I definitely believe that. Mm-mm.
I
Wow.
agree.
So when you said during the first lockdown, you had
Yeah,
said earlier,
true.
um, you said that's when you started to realize was it to the point where you're just like, I got to do something with this. I need this to go away.
So during the first lockdown, I started to have chronic pain. And I mean chronic, it was every day, all day, like muscle pain. And I was extremely tired. I was exhausted. And I didn't know what I had. And I think, yeah, I was working from home at the time. And at some point, I started to feel kind of better. Had more energy, but the muscle pain was still there. And then we
Mhm.
went back to work. I think it was about 2 months later or something. It was in May actually. And when we went back to work, there was so much stress because there were new regulations and there were new ways to behave and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I was dealing with clients at the time, and so it was very difficult. And we were also changing a lot of things within the company. So again, there were new protocols and everything, and some people started to leave and they were not replaced. We were like, the whole team was overwhelmed with the whole
Right.
thing, and we had a new manager that wasn't managing anything and was not supporting us either. So the work environment started to become quite bad,
Okay.
and no one was helping us. And they would change our schedule, like one day from another.
Okay.
Despite me having said that I have, like at the time I was doing, no, I wasn't doing a puncture at the time, but I had to see someone for my muscle pain. I had
Okay.
to see a therapist. So I think I would go at once every fortnight. So
Okay.
I had, different kind of appointments, and I couldn't change my schedule like this all of a sudden. And so it was really bad because I was dealing with a lot of pain, and going back to work, I was also started to get really, really exhausted. And with the whole environment, at some point, it started to be too much because I went to HR and complained, and then they started to make up stories about me and my work. And I was like,
What?
okay, so now they want
Oh,
to fire
no.
me. Now they want to fire me.
Wow.
And I was still fighting. For me and for the team. And, like, this is not okay. And we need to change that. And here are things that we could be doing, and blah, blah, blah. And at some point in July, I remember I went to work, and my manager, which we were not in good terms at the time, because I had told her, look, like, she's not doing her job. She wasn't doing her job, and all the
Right.
team was noticing that.
Yeah.
And so, and she just said hi and how are you? And I was like, what a hypocrite! Like, what a hypocrite! And this is something
He
that I
was up
don't
to
like.
something. That's
Yeah,
what
like
that
fake.
was.
Hypocrisy.
So fake.
It's something that I just don't like it. And I remember I was like, what the F? And I don't know, like, it was like 30 minutes later or something. I just couldn't take it anymore. Like, the whole environment, my own health situation, and everything became too much. I was also single. I was obviously estranged from my family. Had been living in Switzerland for many years, but I mean, it's kind of hard to make friends here. So I was quite isolated. I didn't have the support, and I was really unwell. And my work situation was was
Adding
really
on
not
to
good.
it.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Mhm.
yeah, and like, it was in July, and I think it was the 9th of July or something, and I felt my mind literally break. Like, my body had a hard time keeping up for a long time now, and I always wondered what it would take me to actually like, literally, like, break down. And that work situation was really the last drop.
Wow.
And so I literally burned out. And it was during the summer, so they were so it was during the summer holidays here in Switzerland. And I actually got to see a psychiatrist in late September.
Okay.
So there was about 2 months and a half. During that time, I was super tired, obviously, but I was determined to get better. And I don't know how I did it, because I had just got 2 puppies that were also really sick.
Wow.
So I had burnout. I had my 2 puppies. It was and they were very sick, and I had to take care of them, and it was a really bad situation. And sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I made it. I don't know how I made it, but I did. And during that time as well, I was really determined. I was feeling, honestly, like, I just don't even know how to explain that. Like, when your mind literally breaks, I couldn't even explain how it feels like. But what I know is that I was determined to feel better. So I started to do research online. I was like, okay, I hadn't been on this healing journey for about 20 years. why the hell am I going through burnout now? Why the
Right.
hell do I
Yes.
have this chronic pain and the symptoms and everything?
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I during my research, I was able to connect the dots and realize that my childhood trauma had completely dysregulated my nervous system. And
Wow.
that was why I had been having all these symptoms for over, about 30 years.
Wow.
Wow.
And so I was like, okay, I need to heal my nervous system. And so I started to do acupuncture. I also started to do shiatsu, which also works with the nervous system. And late September, I went to see the psychiatrist because I was on sick leave. Luckily, in Switzerland, I was paid during my sick leave,
Oh,
like
thank God.
100%.
Oh, wow.
No,
That's
it's not the
amazing.
case in the US, but having
Right.
that, because I don't know how I could have made it without that financial support.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how people can do it without family, without friends, without support, and without a salary. That's like impossible. So I feel very grateful. I know it's not the case in every country in the world, but I feel so grateful that I had my salary 100%. So I, started all these alternative medicine therapies. And late September, I went to see that psychiatrist that was referred to me by my family doctor. And I
Okay.
had told her that I didn't want any kind of
Like
drug. I
medication.
wanted to heal.
Right.
Like I had not been able to uh, hear my body, because obviously I could hear my body, but I couldn't understand it. I couldn't understand my
Okay.
body. I was, now I really want to take the time to understand my body and know what it wants. And so she was like, sure, no problem. And so I went to that guy and I was like, okay, I told him my story, the work situation, and my plan. I had a plan figured out that I wanted to share with him. So, I was an active participant in my own healing, which I think is really important because,
Right.
like, this
That's
is me, this
great.
is my health, this is my body.
Right.
And so he let me speak, and I told him about my story and all the things. And then he literally, I, to me, it felt like he literally, like he verbally assaulted me.
What?
He was talking in a very mean way, questioning my situation at work, saying that this was me telling him that, but I didn't know if it was the truth. I felt like I was on in a court, and I was how do you
Interrogated?
call that, counter
He was
when you're
interrogating you.
yeah
Wow. Like,
yeah,
no.
I felt like that.
That's
And I told him
terrible.
that I didn't want any antidepressant, and
Right.
he wanted me to take antidepressant. There was
It was-
kind of like the rule: if you want to keep on healing, be on sick leave, you have to take antidepressant.
Like he was forcing you to get on the
He was
antidepressant.
forcing you to
forcing
take
me.
medication, and you
Mhm.
wanted to
Yeah,
heal
and
it
he
the
said that I
natural.
would have to go back to work a 50% shift, even though we had never talked about we had never worked on my work situation.
Mhm.
It was the first time that I was seeing him, and we had never worked around that at all. And so I was so
So this
shocked.
is the first evaluation, and he was basically just telling you what you needed to do without hearing everything as a whole.
Yeah.
and
Basically.
not believing what I was telling him.
Right.
Wow.
Even though at some
Mhm.
point he said that if I went through all the things that I said I went through, I would need decades of therapy. And I thought to myself, there's no freaking way that I'm going to be in therapy for decades. Like, there is no way. Like, I want to
Wow.
heal,
Mhm.
and like, I'm not going to go to his office for, for several or more years. So I left. I was
Wow.
so shocked. I was so shocked because I went to that appointment and I thought, okay, now, we're going to work on this, and, I'm going to
Right.
heal and feel better and
You're
all the
going in
things.
there with
But
a
I was like,
positive
okay,
attitude,
Yeah.
and then you're
yeah,
coming out,
there
and it's like,
was,
what the heck?
there,
Yeah, trying to get the
Yeah.
help that you need and want, and he. Oh no.
yeah, I was so shocked. But something good came out of it.
Mm.
I went out of his office, and I had not been able to cry for myself for about 30 years. It was in
Wow.
2021. I was about 35. Yeah, 35, 36-ish. And went out of his office, and oh my God, I burst into tears. And
Wow.
I cried the whole day and the day after.
Wow.
Wow.
And it felt so liberating. And at the same time, I had to think, okay, now what am I going to do? Because not like my problem hasn't been resolved.
Right.
So I reached out to the acupuncturist I was going to, and I told her, look, this went really bad. I need your help. Do you know any other psychiatrist? She was like,
Right.
and she gave me
We
a
ain't going
contact.
back there.
No,
Yeah.
no, there was no way. There
No
was no
way.
way I was going back
Right.
there.
No.
And there was no way that I was going to take those antidepressants. There was
Right.
no way.
Yeah.
So I reached out to her, and she had a contact, someone that she didn't know, but one of her clients knew, and she told me she had, heard good things about her. And I went to that office. Then I went to that office, and she was working with different kind of psychotherapists, and I saw one of her psychotherapists, and then I was back on sick leave full time, and 2 months, and so I saw that, like, the psychotherapist that I started seeing after that very bad encounter, like, appointment, 2 months after our first appointment, which was in late September, I was healed from burnout.
Wow.
And I was
amazing.
healed from also a lot of symptoms of complex post-traumatic
Wow.
stress disorder, because I worked on different things. I worked with my nervous system, because talk therapy is good, but it's not going to help you heal.
Right.
People need to understand. That's why you have people who do therapy, like talk therapy, for decades, and they still feel
Not
like
the full circle.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
So luckily I had talk therapy for support. I had and I did other kind of, I did shiatsu, acupuncture. I also started to do to heal my nervous system, to support my nervous system in its healing. I also did stuff at home, working with my nervous system, also working with my childhood trauma. So I was very, I wasn't waiting for someone to tell me what I had to do.
She put in her
followed
own
my
work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You put in your own work. That's amazing.
Yeah, I followed my own intuition and picked what I wanted to do and who I wanted to work with. And 2 months later, I was done with burnout. I was done with most of my CPTSD symptoms. What I'm still working on is my nervous system, which is actually way better than it used to. But you have to understand, about 35 years of having a dysregulated nervous system, it's going to take more than 1 or 2 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
35 years of that consistency.
Yeah.
It's going to take a little bit longer to get healed.
But I'm doing so much better, and now I understand myself and I understand my body. And before,
That is
and I think what is actually the most the things that makes you anxious the most is when you don't know what's going on and when you don't understand why you have your symptoms.
Yeah.
I think it's the case for a lot of people. But when you understand why you feel anxious, when you understand why your body reacts this way, you feel reassured. And especially if you have the tool to help you go through these moments.
Yeah.
I love that. And I applaud you for not just always giving in, getting recommendations to certain therapists and knowing that, no, I don't want to take medication, and just, having your own voice and doing your own research to, find what's really the root cause of everything that you're going through, especially when you had so much going on with your dogs and then your job, and just because me just listening to your story, I'm like, how does she do it with no support? Like how are you?
It was hard. Honestly, it was hard. It was so hard. But I wanted to I feel that I had enough love for myself to want to feel better. And I had my puppies who were so sick and they were relying on me. They didn't have anyone else. So, I was fighting for myself, but I was also fighting for them. And I guess that, and I know it's not for everyone. I know not everyone is able to go through these challenges and come out on the other side. But I guess it's also my own belief. Ever since I was a child, I always believed that I deserve the best, and not in a narcissistic way. But I always believed that I deserve the best, and I always wanted this happy life for myself. So I think that my own beliefs, on a subconscious level, help me go through these very challenging times because I knew my why.
Yeah. And I think that even, with all the trauma we go through as kids, I think that's what we start to embed that in ourselves. Like, I deserve the best. I want the best for me. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that as you
For
get
some,
older.
yes.
Yeah.
For some, and for some, it's the total opposite. Yeah. It's true. I always believed, it's funny because when I think of myself as a child, I always believed in love and I didn't understand why the word was how it was. That never really made sense, but I always believed in love. And I think that's something that I was always able to keep. It's not about loving everyone and, just letting yourself be abused or whatever. It's just about this kind of like love that you can have within yourself, which is more about, I guess, life itself. That makes sense. And believing that it doesn't matter where you come from. And don't get me wrong, it's so much harder for some people. Like, I'm not going to say, some people have more support. Some people are in better financial situations. Let's not pretend that we are born equal because this is not true. This is not true.
That's so true.
And I'm not, I'm not blaming anyone, but it's a fact that some people have more privilege than others, and this is how it is. But yes, it's harder for the people who have no support, have no family, have no one to back them financially. It takes so much strength and so much determination.
Yeah.
And I think I always had that within me.
I believe that. I totally believe that because the way of your thinking from a positive perspective changed the way of you finding the reasoning of why everything you went through. Because if it would have been negative, you know how sometimes we are our worst critics on things. But if your mind was in a loop of thinking negative and thinking of all the negative things that you've been through, it may have took you longer to figure out what the root cause was.
Yeah.
So I applaud you for that, for always believing in yourself and always knowing that there is some good in this, even though I'm going through everything, because that was the reasoning on how you were able to get to the root cause of it for easier, but not so deep into your life as an older age, because you took the time to actually figure it out authentically versus beating yourself up.
And I think that it's also because I believe that, and I think it's a belief that I've always had, that, as human beings, we are born to experience life in a free way, and we are born to be, healthy. And I had all the symptoms that I didn't understand. And to me, that didn't make sense.
Right.
I was like, this is not me. This is not how my life should be. I wasn't going to accept that it was going to be my life, that my life would be a life of, health issues, whether they're physical or emotional. And I have some people, who's like, this is life, and, and you get old and all the things.
They just deal with it.
And this is not this is not my belief, like I'm going to be 38 years old this year. And like, I don't have any wrinkles on my face. I was on a date just 2 months ago, and the guy was like, I can't
You look
believe your face.
good.
Yeah, you look great.
Like, you don't have a single wrinkle on your face. And again, like, it's a belief.
Mhm.
And maybe it's also my DNA. I don't know, because I'm very much mixed race. But I've never believed in aging. To me, aging is so odd. Like,
Yeah.
it's an odd thing. I don't know. It makes no sense to me. Maybe I'm neurodivergent. I don't know, but yeah, like,
It's all in the
aging.
way you think too.
Yep, it is.
Yeah,
It's all the way you
That
think.
affects
Yeah.
your body and everything. It's all in the
Mhm.
way you think.
Yep,
And you're
Exactly,
it is.
aging
because
gracefully, as you can
you
see,
know,
you're aging
Yeah.
really gracefully.
I went through, I went through chronic stress, and they usually say when you have stress, it's really bad.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think it's a belief. Also, like, I eat homemade meals. I don't drink alcohol. I don't smoke. But it's not because I want to preserve myself. It's more that I'm just not attracted to those things.
And that is
Um,
okay.
And you're
That's
taking
something
care of your body.
you're taking
You're
care of
also
you.
taking
yeah,
care
Yeah.
of
I
yourself.
mean, for me personally, my body is my temple.
Example.
I
There
want
we go.
to nurture it. I
Yes.
want to nourish it. I mean, this body has been with me ever since the moment I was born, and will be with me until the day I die.
Right.
It is my
Mhm.
vessel in this physical reality, and I should take care of it,
Yeah.
because, I mean, that's, I feel very blessed to have a body, and it's my job to take care of it,
Yes.
because
Yeah.
because that's the reason why I get to experience life.
Mhm. I
Amazing.
totally agree. So, how is life now once you were able to, find the transition, find the root cause of
So,
everything?
yeah.
How is everything going now?
Honestly, having done that for myself, and having been the main decision maker in my healing, made me feel so empowered, because I made decision and I saw that it was working. And I had been, kind of like running in circle in the corporate world, and I knew that it wasn't what I wanted to do. I always knew that I wanted to work in self development, and something in that field. I didn't know that it would be coaching. um actually started first by being some sort of, like, I guess, guide. I was more utilize. Oh my god, I was more using my intuitive gifts than my coaching skills. But I realized that people were more into, me kind of like telling them what I was intuitively feeling and seeing for them, than actually wanting to do the work. So that's when I switched more into coaching. Now I integrate both together. But yeah, I think that was always my calling and my work, which is really about alignment, about being
Yeah.
who you truly are.
Yeah.
It helps me help people feel empowered, and be also more sovereign in their own in the decisions that they make, whether it's in their work life or love life, or even, I think, for the past 3 years, yes, now 3 years, there has been, there has been so many things and so many decisions that we had to take for different reasons. And I think
Yeah.
it's important that you get to do whatever your choice is, it has to be yours.
Right.
Yeah.
And alignment is key for that.
I agree. I definitely agree.
Yeah. I think that is amazing how you're using what you've been through to help others to overcome and find their purpose, to overcome the trauma, and being able to give them that purpose driven life. And with doing that, like you said, it's so, and just even when you said it's empowering, just like even think about it, just it's really so empowering and powerful, because sometimes these same people don't know where to go because they don't have anyone to understand them.
Especially
And
doctors.
exactly,
Agree.
and then now that you're doing this, they're able to come to like, oh my God, they'll have that weight lifted off of them,
Right.
because they found someone that's really
They're
understanding to them,
relatable.
Yeah.
relatable. Yeah, because
Mhm.
you went to someone, you went to the therapist, and he was just
I
trying
mean,
to,
oh,
yeah, he was just trying to force you with medication. And technically,
yeah.
it's not always about it's not always about pushing medication on someone. When someone, if you can heal just without the medication, someone else can do it as well.
Right.
Of course. And I think, I interviewed a woman a couple of weeks ago, and she actually, as a preteen, she had cancer so bad that the doctors told her that she would die within a few months, and she didn't
Wow.
accept that. She didn't accept that. And she, her parents only had her. She had no siblings, and she was like, okay, look, they cannot help me, but we're going to find ways so I can heal.
Right.
And so she did different kind of alternative therapies, and she healed. And she has never had cancer. Now she's in her mid 30s, and cancer has never come back.
And she didn't
And
listen to them.
she didn't
That's
listen
amazing.
to
You
them.
see, and I,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think
Because some
listening.
people get those negative thoughts, those negative perspectives from the doctors, and they run with it.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
did the total opposite.
Because, like,
empowering.
a doctor can only make a prediction. He
Yeah.
doesn't know when or what. And
Right.
I feel that sometimes if you tell someone, okay, look, you're going to die within 4 months, that's a thought that goes into the brain.
Yep,
Right.
it does.
And when you start believing something,
Believing that. There
I'm
we
not,
go.
I'm not saying that this is the case for everyone, but when you start believing something, you can be sure that it's going to be harder to heal.
Yeah.
But luckily for her, she was very determined. I think she was 12 at the time. She was determined to heal, and she was
She
determined
was
to
a
leave.
child.
Yeah, she was a child.
Wow.
And
Wow.
luckily, she listened to her own gut, and her parents,
That's amazing.
followed her and supported her on her journey, and she was able to heal from cancer.
Wow.
That's
So,
amazing.
I mean, healing is possible. You just have to find the right people. You just have to find the right tools. But we, as human beings, as conscious beings, like, we have a soul in this body. That is extremely powerful.
Yeah.
We are able to heal ourselves.
That's
And
true.
when you believe that, you find your way.
I love that. I love that.
So do I.
So let's get into, how did you come about with the website Embody Your Flow? I love.
Oh my God!
love
So
the
that was actually I think it was about a year ago. I was late March, early April. I was having I was having an acupuncture treatment, and I was lying on this big chair, and intuitively I heard "Embody Your Flow," and I was like, oh my, and I didn't really know what that meant at the time, but I was like, oh my God, this is a new name. Like, I have to do rebranding. I have to do rebranding. That this is going to be the new name.
Wow.
And then when I started working on that, I was like, embody your flow. Yeah, that makes sense. Because, that's kind of like this mix of being in the physical body as a soul. And embody your flow is really about, letting your true self, which is your soul, embody be embodied, actually.
Yes.
Because we all have so much programming from our education, from society and everything around, that we actually lose ourselves. We lose ourselves. And embody your flow, it's really about reconnecting with your true self and live a life that is aligned with who you truly are and what you truly desire.
Wow. I love
That's
that.
so beautiful. I love it. Because when I seen it, I was like, ooh, that's real catchy. So I love that. And it came upon your thoughts in the weirdest moment. You said you were at an appointment.
Yeah. And I think, honestly, if I can share something about being, about inspiration, you will get those glimpse of, inspiration, intuition, call
Yep.
it whatever you want, when you actually create space. I was having an acupuncture treatment. I was lying on that big chair, alone and feeling calm and relaxed. And all of the sudden, I
It
heard
just,
embody your flow. And I was like, oh my God, this is
I
it.
love
I
it.
need to rebrand. And this is going to be my new name for my
That's
business.
There
amazing.
we go.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how you're so in tune with your thoughts, because
Yeah.
Yeah.
sometimes people are just doing so much and we're going from here to here to here. They
Yep.
can't really hear
Yeah.
those thoughts.
So
Yep.
I just
Yep.
I
It's very
just
true.
want to note that I was always very intuitive. As a child, I was around 5 years old when I realized that I had intuitive gifts. So I was always very
Mm.
intuitive, but very intuitive. When you have blocks in your subconscious mind, that's going to help you, but you're still like the blocks in your subconscious mind. I are still going to keep you from reaching that goal in the time frame that you want.
Yes.
In
Mm.
my healing journey, I learned that being intuitive is great, but if you have blocks in your subconscious mind, that's going to you're going to have those weird glasses,
Yeah.
and you're not going to be able to see all the possibilities that are in front of you.
It's cloudy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
So many distractions. Yeah. Wow.
yeah.
I love that. I love that. You are so blessed. You are so
Yeah.
blessed. I don't know if you're aware, but you are so blessed. And I just love that, you didn't let anything stop you. Your story is so powerful. No matter what you've been through in life, no matter everything that you've been through, whether it's work, relationships, family, you stayed true to who you were.
Mm.
And
Yeah,
that's such a blessing. It's hard too. And I love
it
that
is.
about
It is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. I can laugh about
Yeah.
it with you, but I can tell you that, there were, very hard moments.
hmm
But also, I think that when you create that relationship with yourself, when you have self compassion, self love, you become more resilient. And this is something that I
Yes.
realized after healing
Yeah.
from burnout, that I was more resilient because I was more connected to myself. I really had created a deep relationship with myself, and I was more in tune with myself.
Mm.
Therefore, I was more in tune, like on heart, mind, body, and soul. And now when a challenge comes up, obviously sometimes I'm going to feel stressed. So I'm going to do, nervous system regulation practices, but also I trust that I'm going to find a way.
Yes.
Because
Mm. Yeah.
before, I would feel like my whole world was crashing down.
hmm
Wow.
Now,
Mm.
I know that I'm going to find a way.
You
It
got
may not
control of
come
it.
right away, but something's going to come up
Yeah.
because
Mm-hmm.
I follow my intuition, I take actions, and I just know that I
Mm.
will find a way.
Mm. I love that how you did it without support. And support, we
Me, not
always,
so much, but
yes.
yes.
I mean, as humans, we need people to be there and to lean on.
Oh
But I
my God,
love
yes,
the
we do.
strength and knowing that, I don't have my family or anyone there for me, but I'm going to do this for myself because this is what I need for myself because I love myself enough to do it for
Yeah.
myself. And that is powerful because, sometimes I need somebody, I need someone, and you didn't need anyone.
And I did that actually, for a long time because I think I was very young when I realized that if I didn't love myself, no one would. I was
Mm.
obviously not getting any kind of love from my parents. I was not getting any kind of emotional support from them either. So I kind of I had to learn how to, I guess, rely on myself.
hmm
Yeah.
But that when I started to have long-term relationships, I was also having a lot of panic attacks. I didn't like to be alone, so for a long
Mm.
time, I had a hard time being alone
hmm
because my anxiety would show up. And now I've been single for 4 years. Actually, I've been single for 4 years, and I'm actually I like life. I mean, I am able to handle life on my own. I wouldn't say that I like it. I mean, I love having my moments when I can take care of myself and do all the things that I
Yeah.
love. Would I
Mhm.
like to have a companion, like a partner? Of course. But it's not like I need that now. I
Right.
want it,
Yes.
but I
Mhm.
don't need it, which is
Mhm.
different.
Yeah.
Mhm. I
That's
love that. And do you still have your babies?
Of course. Of course. I
Oh,
have three dogs actually.
now you got
When I
three.
got my puppies, I already had a 11 years old dog.
Okay.
So now it's
Aw.
going
Okay.
to be 13 this year, and the puppies will be 2 in May.
Oh.
So yeah, I have three dogs, and I feel
Aw.
so blessed to have them.
Aw.
Uh-huh.
Those three little boys, they
You're a
are
fur
adorable.
mama.
Yeah,
Your
yeah,
mama.
You're a fur
yeah.
mama.
Like,
I'm a fur
you know,
grandma, so
when I walk my dogs, people are always surprised. They always ask, are they all yours? Yes, yes, they are.
Are they big? Are they big dogs?
No, they are Shih Tzus.
Oh, okay.
oh,
They're
that's they're so adorable.
Yeah,
Oh
they
my
are
goodness.
adorable. Yes, they are so like
Oh.
they are, the lights
Oh.
of my life.
Oh.
Well, thank you so much, Monica. I really enjoyed your
Thank you
testimony.
for having me.
And
It was a pleasure.
No, it was a
one
pleasure
question,
to have you.
yes,
Thank
yes,
you.
definitely was a pleasure. One question we do ask all of our
Mhm.
speakers,
Sure.
and that is, what makes you uncommon?
I think we are all very unique beings. We all have our own gifts, our own skills. I would say, I guess I'm super resilient, very intuitive, and I believe that it's deep belief that I have that the world that we live in is not supposed to be that way, that we are
Yes.
born to be free and to live
Mm,
happily and healthy. Yeah, I do
Mm,
believe that.
wow.
Yeah.
I love that.
So do
Thank
I.
you.
That is
Thank you.
that is
Thank you,
amazing.
viewers, for tuning in. Be sure to connect with us on Instagram on Mondays, where Tyra does Motivational Mondays. And you can check us out on Instagram at Uncommon Women Podcast. Also, if you have a business and you would like us to promote it, we are in the process of promoting business and get your word out there. Please go to our email to get more information at uncommonwomenpodcast@gmail.com, as well as if you want to be a speaker or you know someone that's interested in being a speaker on the podcast. And also, next Thursday, we have another guest speaker that's coming on. We'll be going live at 7 p.m. So remember, stay uncommon.
Bye.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you've been shacking up with us for a while and haven't subscribed to our channel, what are you waiting for? Please like and subscribe to Uncommon Woman so you won't miss another episode. And remember, don't let anything or anyone affect your peace. Good vibes and stay uncommon.